Hmm? Ah! This is the Good Omens podcast on TV Podcast Industries in association with Podcastica, and we're looking at Season 2, Chapter 2, The Clue.
God will reward him with twice as much as he had before.
Oh, praise be.
Twice the oxen, twice the goats, twice the children.
Twice the children.
Yes, of course. How many does he have now? 3? So he'll get 6.
Probably 7. You know how God likes 7s.
Right. Gosh. The only thing is, Sitis is 58. I don't know how familiar you are with the human birth process.
Pretty familiar, actually. Seeing as how I personally witnessed the very first human birth.
Yes, of course. Although perhaps Eve's birth wasn't an entirely typical... Anyway, I only meant, are we sure that Sitis wants to give birth 4 more times?
7 more times?
But she's already got 3 children. So.
Yeah, but those ones will be dead. Keep up.
We're not bringing the old ones back.
Well, of course not. But we're giving them new ones.
I think they quite like the old ones.
Welcome back, fellow acolytes. Yes, it is John, one of your hosts on TV Podcast Industries, and I'm joined by my own ineffable fiancé, Derek.
Thanks, John. Nice to be back on Good Omens, Season 2, Episode 2.
Exactly, yes. The Clue, but also featuring the minisode, A Companion to Owls.
This has confused everybody, and I'm so sorry. Effectively, IMDb have the titles and this little tag on saying Minisode, A Companion to Owls, but actually the title of the episode is just The Clue, and the minisode that everybody's trying to find within x-rays and extras and all that kind of stuff, that's just the flashback to Job. That's the minisode. A minisode in the context of Good Omens is all the flashbacks that we'll see throughout the series. So
okay,
it's confused everybody.
Excellent. Now we're on the straightened path.
Yes.
To righteousness on the show titles.
Yes.
And of course, we are in association with Podcastica as well to bring Good Omens to you all, fellow acolytes. But before we get started, to those of you who have recently found our podcast, you can go to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast on any heavenly or demon-like podcast catcher of your choice.
Hellish, would that be the other word?
Maybe hellish as well. You can also leave a voicemail there if you want to leave feedback for our feedback section. You can leave up to about 60 or 90 seconds of voicemail. You can also send in your feedback through email to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. And of course, we are there present on all social media outlets, as well as on Facebook with our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/ TV Podcast Industries, where we do put up spoiler posts for feedback as well.
Yes, but the one we're not on is Threads, because Threads hasn't been released in Europe yet.
That is true.
Since we're in Ireland, not in England, the UK, we don't get access to Threads, so you can't look for us over there, unfortunately. But you will find us on most other social media outlets.
Yes.
And also we should quickly mention, John mentioned that we are in partnership with Podcastica. You can also pop on over to podcastica.com. You can find our Good Omens podcast on there, along with loads of other great ones, which we'll talk about probably at the end of the episode.
Yes, good stuff. Well, let us get into our spoiler-filled discussion of Episode 2, The Clue. Derek, who gave us what, where, when, and how?
Yes, this show is based on characters from the novel Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. The teleplay for the show and every episode this season is from Neil Gaiman and John Finnemore, and this episode, once again, directed by Douglas MacKinnon.
Good stuff.
And John, as usual, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Good Omens Season 2, Episode 2, The Clue, with a capital C?
Sure. In 2500 BCE, in the land of Uz, Aziraphale arrives to stop Crowley from bestowing the nicest guy in the world, Job, horrific disasters to befall him, including his herd of goats. He learns that Crowley is there by permission of the Almighty, and the trials are intended to test Job's faith as a bet between God and Satan. Aziraphale, feeling pity for him, is horrified by the prospect of heaven and hell destroying Job's children. And after some convincing, he and Crowley trick the angels into thinking that Job's children are dead, although hidden in lizard form. When the archangels reveal the test to Job and reward him with double his losses, Crowley and Aziraphale hatch a plan. Crowley, disguised as Uzu the Shiite, a professional midwife and cobbler, pretends to extract Job's wife, Siti's, ribs to kids, while transforming his actual children from lizard form. Aziraphale confirms that all birthing was in accordance with how it happened in the Garden of Eden, and the children are in fact new replacements. But Aziraphale feels great guilt for thwarting the will of God, and wonders if he did the right thing. In the present, Jim, short for James, short for Gabriel, seems to be enjoying his Job as bookshop assistant, so much he begins singing the Buddy Holly hit every day. Meanwhile, Michael, Uriel, and Saraquel arrive in Soho upon tracing the miracle to the bookshop. However, due to the miracle Aziraphale and Crowley performed, they cannot recognise Gabriel, and leave, still suspicious of Aziraphale, who assures the assembled host that the miracle was for love between Maggie and Nina. As Shax offers to drop the hostility towards Crowley in exchange for the information on where Gabriel is, Aziraphale commandeers Crowley's wheels to embark on a road trip to the Resurrectionists, a pub at 66 Goat Gate in Edinburgh, to investigate his brand new clue, leaving an exasperated Crowley to watch over the bookshop and Gabriel.
Fantastic synopsis. And first off, I will say I loved this episode even more than the first. It made me laugh so much more.
Yes.
The story of Job is a harrowing tale in the Bible.
Harrowing, yes.
But it's so funny in the context of how they presented it at Good Omens.
Exactly.
I absolutely loved it. And we also see the connection from John's synopsis there. The minisode to the main story in the episode is all about Job's. Like Gabriel's new Job.
Yes. Did you like that?
Mispronounced, but it was still funny.
Yes,
we'll leave it in. We'll leave it in. Good stuff. We always talk about our signs of the apocalypse every week, our main moments, the things that we enjoyed about the episode, John. Should we kick off with our first sign of the apocalypse?
Yes, our first sign of the apocalypse is the bet between heaven and hell. Mm-hmm. Who thought they were gamblers, eh? Up there and down there. I guess it's more likely to be down there that there would be gamblers, but...
Well, yes,
gambling. I wonder if money exchanged or is it just souls?
Ooh, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, I suppose the idea in some mythology or some thought is that this is the grand experiment of the Almighty, that Earth and the humans aboard the planet are kind of a grand experiment. So he's being challenged by Satan because the Almighty is saying, Job's amazing, he's absolutely wonderful, nicest guy on Earth. And Satan's saying to him, well, the reason he's really nice is because you're really nice to him. So, of course, he's responding in a nice way. And the Almighty's going, well, hang on. If you take away all of the nice things, you have carte blanche, take away everything. You'll still find Job is quite a nice man. That's the bet between the two of them. It's effectively that Satan is once again questioning the will of God or the plan of God.
And can someone keep their faith even when... everything, including the kitchen sink, has been thrown at him.
Exactly, yes. But I love the opening here, where we have quite a funny moment with Crowley looking to destroy all of the goats. Now, the fact that we find out later that he doesn't destroy all the goats, it all works very well.
Which is very good.
It's very, very cute. But I was quite surprised with the fact that he goes through with it, and that's in the scene as it plays out initially when you're watching it, that Crowley just goes around and destroys all of the goats, the innocent goats around him, and Aziraphale can't do anything to stop him because he has absolutely massive permit that stretches over all the mountains of the land of Uz.
It's just
Uz or Uz? I guess Uz.
Uz, I guess.
Yeah.
So
the land of Uz.
The land of Uz, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean... that's it. I mean, it's just really good. I mean, even just as Aziraphale enters sort of stop, damn demon, you know, all that kind of almighty fire and brimstone type approach. And then sort of is like, oh, it's you. And then they sort of get into that pitter-patter, these two, which is just so great. I mean, it's
Always.
even where he goes, Job, he's an absolute puppet, which is such like an English kind of turn of phrase to call someone a puppet.
I think the only place I've ever heard that word used outside of this show is in Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't think I've ever heard it used in real life other than in movies to show a British person, a very standard British person saying puppet.
Yeah, and it's a term of endearment, you know. So it's just really good. And that's what I love about the show. It's just that pitter patter between the two of them. Even just, I have a permit. I've got permission for Job to be punished here. That's why I'm allowed to be here, and I can destroy his little baby goats. Which, and then he says, and his children and his geese, and he's like, his what?
Yeah. His geese. When he's talking about it up in heaven, they describe that the geese are the angry ducks, aren't they? And I really like that once again, Crowley's saying, he does have a contract with the Almighty, and then, as usual, trying to have a bit of a laugh about it, he says, but I am a demon, so I could be lying. He still wants Aziraphale to feel like he can't trust him because he's a demon, not the angel that he once was when they first met.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because you kind of think that God thinks that Job is a puppet as well, really likes him and so on. But you do get that moment later on in this episode where you have the spotlight of God speaking to Job, and it's kind of so intense, and you have Job coming back to his wife saying, well, I didn't really understand it. I heard about ostriches and elephants, and you seem to really like whales, but I think the gist of it was, if you want answers, come back when you can make a whale. It was just like, so actually it's just, God does still consider themselves the ego or egos almighty.
Exactly.
So I'm just I just like that interaction because, for me, it's like, ooh, Job, maybe it's a little misplaced, this faith here. Certainly given the bets going on in the background. And I mean, that's the great thing about this whole setup is that, what is happening to Job is horrific.
Absolutely.
And, he's completely shell-shocked by everything that's happened. He's like, what must I have done? Initially it's like, what must I have done? I didn't even know the sin that I was going to do. That must be why this punishment is so bad.
Yeah.
Whereas his wife, Certis, is a little bit more clued in and, I'm sorry, we're just dealing with the wrath of God at the moment. But then kind of, is a bit like, almost challenging towards the angels as well.
Well, absolutely, yeah. Kind of that definitely felt a bit Blackadder-like or Upstart Crow-like. It felt like one of those historical people speaking in the way that we would speak right now. That comedy around it. Do of course have to call out the return of Frances McDormand as the voice of the Almighty again. Great stuff. Frances McDormand, of course, provided the voice for God in the first season, so great to have her reprising the role here in the second season. I love that continuity, I suppose.
Definitely.
Of her providing the voice. It's cool.
Yeah, definitely. So, I think we should move on to our second sign of the apocalypse for Job.
Yeah, small signs of the apocalypse this episode, because it's really just two parts, isn't it? It's just the past and the present. So
yeah, exactly. Which is Aziraphale wants to save the children. Who doesn't want to save the children?
Absolutely. Seemingly
Crowley. But he might actually be a bit predisposed towards that because, as you said, he saved the cute little baby goats as well. Turned them into ravens to hide them, or crows to hide them.
Do you know, I was wondering, was that a joke about what actual crows sound like? Because they do, now that I've seen it with the goat braying as their call. Now I'm kind of thinking, when I'm in the garden and I hear that noise, maybe that is just a baby goat turned into a crow. But
well, it's not entirely dissimilar, is it? No.
It's very close.
But I think it's not quite goat-like.
No.
I think you need to see a few more goats.
I'd probably need to see a few more goats. I do live in a city. That's not something we see very often here. But yeah, I love how this all comes about, Aziraphale learning that the children are also going to be taken from Job, and how matter-of-factly the archangels are putting this. This is the plan. The hell is allowed to do whatever they want to, take his land, take his goats, take his children. And then when they respond to Aziraphale saying, but don't worry, once it's all resolved, he'll get double what he lost back, including now 7 children being born to his 58-year-old wife.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And Aziraphale trying to really politely, of course, because it's Aziraphale, we mentioned this last episode, really politely trying to say, that's not going to work. A 58-year-old woman is not going to be able to give birth 7 more times in her lifetime. So I really like how that conversation comes about, and Gabriel's under the misconception that really it's just take a rib from a body and it turns into a child. That's the birth of that he's witnessed before. So that's how it always happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really just love this whole concept. It's really subversive, done in a really funny way. I mean, even just the fact that actually Aziraphale, there is this whole thing of him going against the will of God in this, but he's there to stop Crowley, which has the will via the permit of God. And, so in a sense, he's already rebelling without him knowing it. And you can, it's almost the ignorance of the archangels to Aziraphale, who has kind of been the shepherd and steward on Earth, realizing that actually it's not all done through the ribs anymore, the birthing process. The idea that, yes, Job's wife is at her sort of age of 56, 58 is going to suddenly have to give birth to 7 replacements, and just the horror of the fact that, well, they quite like their current children.
Well, exactly.
And would quite like them back, actually. Not totally replaced and still dead, even though they've got 7 more children. Yeah. So it's really, really good. And it's also just that pitter-patter with Crowley and Aziraphale as well, where Crowley, on being challenged to stop, and does he really want to do it, says, I do want to kill blameless kids like I killed the blameless goats. And then we have the transformation of the crows into the goats as they bleat instead of caw.
Absolutely.
So I really enjoyed this, and I enjoyed seeing them saving the kids from the burning house by just bringing them into the cellar, and then just having them turned into the lizards. And Jemima was just really good, the youngest kid.
Absolutely. I love the introduction to them there. It's Keziah, daughter of Job, Enon, son of Job, Jemima, I made a pot, also daughter of Job. Thought that was really fun.
And it's like she sees her siblings being turned into the lizards, and she's like, well, can I get turned into one as well? Yeah. And he goes, well, you haven't annoyed me yet, but I want to. Can I be a blue one? And he's like, zzz, and in they go.
But what's also, I suppose, a good little joke here as well is the fact that these 3 kids who don't know that they're about to be sent to hell, effectively, or killed by this demon, think that he's there to deliver wine for the next party. They're privileged 3 kids who are the children of God's favourite son on earth, Job. So they think, he just clicks his fingers and angels arrive with wine.
Well, that's it. It felt like the clown entertainers coming to the kids' party.
Yeah, basically.
Oh, we've got our angels. They're bringing like the finger food and the wine. I say finger food. It was ox rib.
Yes, it was.
So it was quite big finger food.
It was. And we also saw the temptation of Aziraphale.
Yes.
Into more earthly desires, I suppose. You mentioned it before. He's the person that knows humans much more than others. The time that he's spent on Earth, he's grown to love them. He's grown to respect them. But he's never touched food before. That's not something he would ever do. I do love that. Again, another great back and forth between Crowley and Aziraphale, where he's saying to him, "Are you trying to tempt me, demon?" And he's like, "No, not at all. It's totally your choice if you want to try the meat." And he also doesn't convince him to try wine, but we know now, in present day, Aziraphale's
he likes a fortified wine in sherry.
He likes a fortified wine, but he's also a big fan of a good wine to go with his meals.
Yeah,
we've seen that. We've seen that as well. So obviously, Crowley does eventually tempt him over into that as well.
Well, that's it. I mean, because here, this is where Crowley says, I'm a demon that goes along with hell as much as I can, but I'm on my side, and this is where this first gets brought up, and
yes.
That just because you don't do everything that's said, but you're still doing the job. It's just the challenging of the unfettered faith that Job is giving to God. And, Crowley doesn't believe in the unfettered loyalty and devotion and faith, even to Satan. I'm here doing my thing, and I am going along with my orders from hell as much as I can, but not all the time, like killing cute baby goats, or indeed children.
Yes. And if you think about it, that's also what originally got Crowley into trouble. Questioning the orders of the Almighty got him into trouble in the past. So in this case, he's effectively saying, I do what I need to. I don't question it. I just don't do the things that I don't want to do. And he doesn't get punished for that. It's the questioning part that was the problem. So we're going to see that. We'll call it our third side of the apocalypse. We see that where Crowley chooses to help Aziraphale save the kids. You mentioned that piece already, but it's the fact that Aziraphale lies and covers something up, and it results in Aziraphale questioning everything about who he is, what it means to be an angel, and aligning to the concept that Crowley's brought along, this idea that he can still be an angel, mostly sides with heaven, and mostly goes along with what they have done.
It's the hoodwink, though, as well. You know, that not only does Aziraphale straight lie to Gabriel in that this is the birthing process and that these are new replacement children, not the original three.
Exactly like the other three, the same age.
Not only does he do that, but it's also that he goes along with the subterfuge that Crowley, as Shua the Shiite, does. And I mean, all of this was just really, I thought, great. Like, I'm a Shua who makes shoes because even people in Shua need shoes.
Yes.
Yes, I can also give birth. Yes, I'm a professional midwife and cobbler. And it's just like, that would be an awesome, if only those random skill sets could be profitable, I guess, as together. But it was just really good, and it's that hoodwink as well. But yes, it is, and even the constant kind of nudging and sort of looking at Job to get him to lie.
Yes,
as Job doesn't quite get what's gone on here, and that's what I mean. Certis is a little bit, she's more in the loop here, and kind of nudging him and telling him as she sees what's playing out between Shua the Shiite and then Aziraphale.
Yes.
So I like that, but then it comes to that point where, there is, the darkness that envelops Aziraphale because of that, who thinks then, right, he meets Crowley at a lovely sort of seaside cliff top with lovely sunset going, right, come on, take me. I'm going to hell because I've lied. And Crowley is like, I'm not going to tell anyone, so nothing has to change. Yeah. And effectively, Crowley says to him, you're an angel who goes along with heaven as much as you can, but you're on your own side.
Exactly.
And then he realizes the loneliness of that because of Crowley's lie, that it wasn't necessarily lonely, but it is.
Yeah. Because, as Crowley says, again, and repeats it, I'm a demon. I lied. And that's the way he confirms that, yes, it is a really lonely life when you're traveling that path, staying to your own morals and then going against what heaven wants sometimes because it doesn't fit with what you would do. So, I really like that kind of roll back to he's a demon, he could lie. So that's kind of how their relationship stands, I suppose.
Yeah.
And all of these, let's say the minisode, as it's being called, this flashback to what happened in the time of Job, is really kind of set up for what's happening in the present day with the miracle that Aziraphale and Crowley performed to hide Gabriel from the angels. That is effectively Aziraphale again, going against heaven's will, I guess.
Yeah, in hiding Gabriel.
And that kind of brings us back to our fourth sign of the apocalypse, which is going on in the present day, right? So, so I guess it's back to Jim, the nice bookstore attendant who's sorting books by the first letter of the first word in each book, which is absolutely hilarious and completely useless, but very enjoyable for Jim. He's really enjoying himself there. And we get our kind of big lead off, and the name of the episode is The Clue, and the clue here is that Jim starts singing the song Every Day by Buddy Holly.
Yes.
For apparently no reason. And once again, when Aziraphale tries to prod him on it, he goes, what was I singing? Aziraphale asks him, when did you hear that song? And he said, earlier on, when it came out of my mouth. So this kind of sets us on the path of the current time. Aziraphale once again calls in Crowley to try and find something that could connect this clue to what's happening with Gabriel. Why is Gabriel here in the coming storm or the coming apocalypse? What could it be? So we have them working together again, hiding from heaven.
Yeah, and it also links into the story of Job that we've been seeing as well, cut into this episode, which is really good. I mean, we do get Gabriel almost coming back to Gabriel form. You know, you see the glint of purple in his eyes. You know, it's as Crowley and Gabriel have just come back from the Dirty Donkey pub and trying to get something out of Gabriel. You know, what's the first thing you can remember? You know, Crowley almost trying to sort of frighten it, sort of shout it out of him. Mm-hmm. And he starts recanting things, and he comes with, I remember when all the morning stars sang and the angels shouted for joy, which is what we hear God say to Job when he's spotlighted. Mm-hmm. And it's like, ooh, you remember that from Job. And it's just, you know, that little connection coupled with him singing every day. It's a getting closer. It's mainly that line of the Buddy Holly track. And Aziraphale has picked up a copy of the track on record. Interestingly, on the record, it's that this pub up in Edinburgh is sending all of these down to her, because each time they're in the jukebox, they're coming back. They're turning into Buddy Holly's Everyday track. And on that, the sticker is the pub called The Resurrectionist, which we saw on the Matchbox in the last episode.
Absolutely, the Matchbox that was still in heaven.
Yes, in Edinburgh. So this pub may be some form of conduit.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And for book fans and people who watched the first season of Good Omens, a little nod here as well to what was happening with cassettes in Crowley's car, all turning into the best of Queen. Now we have records turning into this specific single from Buddy Holly.
Yeah, absolutely. So
that's a genuine sign of the apocalypse, though, in comparison to the other ones that we just called our signs of the apocalypse, right? So this seems much closer a connection to what could be coming.
Definitely. Yeah. I love how Aziraphale lying again to the heavenly hosts that have come to his bookshop by saying, "Oh, the miracle." Luckily, it works because they don't recognize Gabriel, and Aziraphale is explaining to the heavenly hosts that he perform this miracle in order to bring Maggie and Nina together, all for the act of love.
Yes, they're such lovebirds. And she's my Tennant. You know, he's trying to explain why he would use a miracle of this magnitude to bring the two of them together. I think it even said in the car, you hear Shax talking to Crowley and saying this was like an archangel level miracle that they performed.
Yes.
So do you need to do that to bring two lovers together? I think they talk about it in the bar in the Dirty Donkey about having to now fulfill this thing that Aziraphale has said.
Get Nina and Maggie together when Nina is very cool on the idea.
Well, yeah, Nina's in a relationship as well. Exactly. But Aziraphale explains that's not how miracles work. You can't just snap your fingers and get two people together. So they'll have to genuinely do something to get the two of them together. So I love their little perception, because, you know, Aziraphale and Crowley, lovely guys, spent a lot of time on Earth, but I don't think they know how love works either, because their references are, you know, looking at 4 Weddings and a Funeral and how those two characters got together. So if we replicate that, that'll definitely work for Nina and
well, that's
Maggie.
It.
Right?
I love the fact that you need to cause a downpour so that they're caught under an awning together, escaping from the rain. Yeah. And I love that back in London, after Crowley has been spoken to by Shax, that he bumps into Nina and he's kind of testing out Aziraphale's plan for Maggie and Nina by asking Nina, you know, would she take shelter under an awning with Maggie in the pouring rain? Like, good to know. And like Nina's like, okay then.
Oh, you've really gotten to the heart of who I am as a person.
Yeah, exactly.
Really good. Really, really good. Love these moments. And again, really interesting here with the angels coming down to visit the bookshop and find out what the miracle was. And we have some great moments. Again, John Hamm doing some great comedy here as he's there but not there, seen but not seen, as he's walking around them, and they can't recognize him at all. So I really like that Michael, who is the archangel, who is the main archangel now, I like that she has a moment, given that she's worked with Gabriel for millennia, she has a moment where she seems to have a flicker of recognition about who Gabriel is, and he says, oh, well, of course, I'm the one that let you in at the door over there. Really enjoyed this. So great fun.
Really good.
But they leave very suspicious still of what's happened, and saying that they're going to be sending somebody else back to investigate this miracle and mark it as a miracle on Earth.
Yeah, exactly. So
that'll be interesting.
But with all of that happening, and with this clue in the forefront of Aziraphale's mind, he decides that he will go off on an expedition up to Edinburgh in order to investigate this pub, the Resurrectionist.
Absolutely, we're in season 2 now, so that means you got to have Aziraphale driving the Bentley and Crowley sitting in a bookshop.
Yes, exactly.
You got to swap their positions. That's what happens in season 2.
Not only sitting in a bookshop and looking after it, but also babysitting Gabriel as well.
Yes.
So really kind of enjoyed that little ending, sort of propels you into the next episode to see what happens up in Edinburgh, I'm guessing.
Yeah, exactly. But also, a nice little relationship touch there between Aziraphale and Crowley. They have a shared car and they share the bookshop.
Yes.
Even though Crowley believes he still owns the car. They both own it.
Yeah, exactly.
It was given back to them by Adam, right? In season 1. And the bookshop was given back to them by Adam in season 1. So it's their bookshop and their car.
Yes.
like that. Really good. A couple of notes for this episode. Just because we didn't call it out, it's kind of a big moment, really, with seeing who was playing Job. Job was played by Peter Davison, who's my Doctor Who. He was the Doctor
he's
Who.
my Doctor Who as well.
When we were kids, just at the time that we were getting into Doctor Who, after Tom Baker, Peter Davison came in as the Doctor, and of course, David Tennant, being a very recent Doctor Who, is actually his son-in-law. So he's married to Peter Davidson's daughter, and Job's son in this episode is played by Ty Tennant, who is David Tennant's son, and therefore Peter Davidson's grandson.
Exactly.
So Ty Tennant, David Tennant, Peter Davidson, all together.
There is a family within
unit.
the family scenes of the Job storyline.
Exactly. You may have also seen Ty Tennant in House of the Dragon. Played a really good role in there. It was great to see him on House of the Dragon. But I like these moments here. And I think they're almost lampooning the idea with the way that he's playing Anon as this completely privileged child that gets everything he wants to. I like that they're kind of lampooning the idea that, this legacy family with Peter Davidson and David Tennant, who've been famous now for decades, and what their son or grandson could be like. Oh, give me everything. You're just here to serve me the angels of heaven and hell. You're just here to serve me wine for my party, So there is a little gag in there about their family, I guess.
Definitely.
Because there's if you ever follow David Tennant's wife on Twitter, she always has a great lampooning of any kind of ego that could be there from the family. So there's always good jokes there with them and how they treat fame, I suppose. So I think there's a good little line in there. It's good stuff. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Notes for me, I loved the interaction in the Dirty Donkey around Jane Austen, where Crowley is
she writes books as
she's
well.
a spy master, smuggler, and Aziraphale's she's not. She was a writer of novels.
Yeah.
And he's like, Crowley's just like, I love the line where he just says, she wrote books too. You think you know someone.
Absolutely.
So that was the worst thing. It's just so well done. Just the delivery of that. I mean, the line to write and that delivery, it is the coming together in such a great way. I just loved it. That idea that Jane Austen was, I mean, because there was always that thing about a lot of female writers their pseudonyms would actually be male, because it's always the lampoon in the Blackadder where it's like, I think it's Jane Austen. She had she was a Yorkshireman from wherever with a big bushy beard. So it's just kind of that reverse lampooning, I think, which was really good. As well.
Absolutely. Speaking of the dirty donkey, I don't think I've wanted an angel power more than being able to walk into a busy bar in Soho, point at somebody and get them to get up, finish their drink and walk away so you can get their table.
Absolutely.
You know what? You know how useful that would be in Dublin and in London? John, you've been to bars in Dublin and London. So,
it would be very good if you could do that for sure.
Very jealous of that one.
The other note I have is I just like the little cameo almost here from Shax as she informs Crowley that Gabriel has disappeared and about the huge miracle. She starts off saying, the demon who's hated in both heaven and hell, but finishes it off with this really lovely threat that, and if you don't help, you'll be hated by heaven and hunted and eliminated by hell. Just ups the level of ante there for Crowley.
Exactly. And we know in last week's episode, Shax was talking about, there's something going on. Now she knows it's Gabriel that's gone missing and somebody's hiding Gabriel. And she kind of accuses if Aziraphale is involved in that, he'll also get a punishment as well. So,
absolutely. My other note is there is a measurement for miracles, as when Sarah Crowell is in the bookshop in Soho, she informs Aziraphale that the miracle registered 12 Lazari on the meter.
So Lazari was the person that Jesus brought back from the dead. So this is 12 times the size of miracle of bringing someone back from the dead. So, and that's Crowley and Aziraphale performing supposedly half a miracle each. Yeah, I can see how that would register.
When your powers combine,
well,
I guess.
Exactly.
Greater than the sum of its parts, that
Very
kind
true.
of thing.
Very true. Or else, the idea of hiding Gabriel from every entity needed that level of a miracle. I don't know which way it works, but they definitely didn't intend to do that powerful a miracle.
Not at all.
Certainly.
I love this episode. I'd give this 4.5 Lazari out of 5. I thought it really, I loved the whole Job tale. I thought it was darkly funny.
Yep.
I loved its subversiveness. I thought Peter Davison as Job, just really good. It was just like this shell-shocked man.
Yes.
Really. I love the
what have I done?
Yeah. I thought the interplay between Crowley and Aziraphale, again, just absolutely on point. I love that, getting that origin story in terms of, in effect, both of these are angels fallen from grace. It's just one is still an angel because he's covered it up. Not that Aziraphale is evil. Yes, they are different.
Yes.
As Crowley says, he's still a demon, and I did lie. Yeah. But I think Crowley...
Aziraphale feeling that he's fallen because he's questioned or...
Exactly. And just with it being Crowley's line, about going along with hell or heaven as much as I can, but I'm ultimately on my side. The agency of the two of them, even though one is with hell, one is with heaven.
Exactly.
I thought that was just really clever.
Yeah.
And then obviously with the clue, just that little additional step with the everyday from Buddy Holly, and now that other little clue with the Resurrectionist pub up in Edinburgh, linked to the Matchbox, and how all these records are turning into the Buddy Holly track, and Gabriel sort of unknowingly singing along with that and speaking the same words as God. So is God and Satan back in with another bet?
Well, maybe. Yeah.
Potentially. Maybe. But on a bigger scale, not just one person. Because you do have that moment where Aziraphale is looking through a lot of paper cuttings about things getting closer and from in different parts of the world as well. So, I think the newspaper that he picks up to begin with is The Scotsman, which is the Scottish newspaper.
Yes, exactly.
So Edinburgh is the place to go, the centre, possibly, of this new threat or problem.
Yes, exactly. Or at least the Resurrectionists pub may just be the centre of it. Or Gabriel is sending a message potentially by turning everything into that song. Maybe it's something to do with that.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see next week. Yeah, I love this episode. Really, really good. As I said at the beginning, it made me laugh even more than last week. I think they've hit their stride with the second episode. And that's, exactly what you expect after, a 4-year gap between seasons. You have to do a lot in the first episode to set up all your new characters and set up the new roles for everybody. So, this episode being a great historical tale, particularly one from the Bible with Job, and how the two of them really formed their bond, even though Crowley is still proclaiming that Aziraphale doesn't know him at all. They've now shared something in this tale with Job that will bind them now.
Exactly.
Yeah, good stuff.
Excellent stuff. It is time, fellow acolytes, to move into our feedback section.
I wonder will we get any corrections on last week's episode?
You were right. You were right. I was wrong. You were right.
I'm just setting that up now. There's probably things we got wrong from last week's episode. So maybe that will be our theme for our Facebook, for our feedback each week. Yeah, you were right. We were wrong. You were right.
Exactly.
There you go. Okay.
I think so. But first up for our feedback on Facebook, Donald Dennis says, I'm all in for this. I could just watch these two actors in about anything. The first episode was fun. Things moved along and it felt like very British television, especially how the special effects weren't great. Well, that didn't bother me. It made the show feel kind of homey. The cast also seems great and appropriate. The only real problem might have been the audio. Were the sound issues for anyone else? I can't put my finger on it, but the sound quality seemed inconsistent. Other than that, I don't have any real criticism of any depth. Everything seemed appropriate. My wife and I couldn't quit streaming it, so over the weekend we devoured all 6 episodes. It was grand. I look forward to a total series rewatch.
Excellent.
No content spoilers, but it feels like it was definitely produced with hope for a 3rd season. Unlike season 1, which felt like a complete story, this will feel incomplete if we don't get another. Interesting.
No content spoilers. Thanks very much for that, Donald. And I do like that we got both sides. Just started it. Absolutely love this. Right, we've streamed it all. It was good.
Exactly.
It was good. Good stuff. Really good news for anybody who is a fan of Good Omens, anybody that has finished the season and is coming back for a rewatch with us on the podcast. Neil Gaiman has clearly said he has outlined the 3rd season. It's ready to go into writing. But of course, with the writer's strike, he is a writer. With the writer's strike, he's not going to be working on the project at all until they've resolved to pay the writers what they should be paid, right? So it is there. He is planning to have a 3rd season. His big advice is watch the episodes, share the episodes, get other people to watch the episodes. And by the time the writer's strike comes out, hopefully Prime Video will greenlight a 3rd season. Watch them loads. Watch them along with us. Send in feedback to us. Keep it going, and we will all together. We will get a 3rd season of Good Omens together. And I know Donald knows this, but a reminder, of course, the first season was based in a book that was already 30 years old,
yes,
and was absolutely a complete story when it was told. But I know that there was always that idea that if there was more seasons, there would be a further season beyond season 2. It's clearly been made that way. Don't want to talk about any possible cliffhangers at the end of the season because we don't know. We haven't seen them. But I can understand why you would want to have as much of this as possible, I suppose, from Gaiman. But I wouldn't imagine it's going to be a 4 or 5 season show or anything like that. I think he'll probably do 2 and 3, potentially.
Good stuff. Well, look, I really hope Neil Gaiman gets a 3rd season of this, in the same way as he got the 2nd season for Sandman as well.
Exactly.
It's these are really different shows from the normal shows I think that we cover, and again, just because of the style of Neil Gaiman, it also, the setups are different. They feel different. They feel quirky to normal, you know?
Exactly.
And it kind of infuses the whole project and series. And I just really am in tune with that and love it, you know?
Absolutely. Oh, and just on Donald's question, I didn't notice anything on the sound at all.
No, me neither.
But because we're watching a little bit slower, if there was an issue with the sound, it may have been fixed. If you just watched it in the first weekend, they may have just fixed the issue with the sound since that first weekend. I don't know, but I definitely didn't notice any issues itself. But another good reason to go back. If they fixed the problem with the sound, you can check it out again.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Thanks, Donald.
Yeah, thanks, Donald.
Kevin Coyle over on Facebook also says, thanks for fast tracking me to watch season 2. I am loving it. I don't know what happened to my brain, but thinking of you lads, I got an overwhelming urge to rewatch the 1987 Leah Thompson's Some Kind of Wonderful for the final credits song. It's a Celtic version of Can't Help Falling in Love by Lick the Tins. And if you can ever incorporate the song into one of your podcasts, I would be eternally grateful. See, that's our Irish and English brogues, John, that has Kevin thinking about that song. You know, I know that song so well. My brothers were huge fans of everything that came out from John Hughes, and Some Kind of Wonderful was no exception. Yeah. A great soundtrack. That song was played very often in our house, and I think they were a one-hit wonder from London. They specifically got together, did that song. And I think they did maybe a couple other songs, but definitely their version of Can't Help Falling in Love. I know it very well. I can instantly hear that tin whistle in my head.
I know.
Good stuff, Kevin. But of course, sorry, I did say this to Kevin on Facebook. We can't incorporate the song unless we pay them for the usage of it.
Can't we incorporate 10 seconds?
Nope. No such thing.
5 seconds?
No such thing.
4?
No.
3?
We can do 0.
Could I try and sing it? Or we could get Chris in, our resident opera singer, with a bad tone, to sing it.
Is that what he's trying to do? He's trying to do opera? Is that why it sounds like nothing else ever recorded?
No, he's just tonally deaf.
Okay, yes. I don't know what's worse, but we probably won't be able to do it, I think, Kevin. But interesting suggestion. And yeah, thanks for reminding me of the song. I did listen to it after I saw your message on there. Thanks very much, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kevin. Barbie Pomelas says, I just want to add, why didn't you all put the lines Nina says to Crowley about Mr. Fell being a dark horse and his naked man friend? I thought that was hilarious. And Martin Sheen was deep flush red at that moment.
Oh, that was such a good line. But there's so many per episode, isn't there?
Absolutely.
There's so many ones that we could pull. And this is why there's a feedback section, Barbie. You know, you tell us the ones that we missed, and we'll share them on the podcast. You know, the ones that stood out to you. You know, there just really is. I was trying to take notes on this episode last night, and I think I ran to about 3 pages because almost every line was gold.
I know. Yeah, it is. It's so gold. And
so much fun.
Every line is gold, and just how it's delivered is gold.
Yeah.
Like, even if it technically, I guess, just reading it on a piece of paper, it may not come across as funny, but the context of it and the way it's done in this show is just so good.
Exactly.
It's really good. Thanks, Barbie.
But you're totally right, Barbie. That's a great line. Yeah. And also the, you can tell there's a little prodding from Crowley there, wanting to know more about this situation. He thinks it's really funny that, Aziraphale is getting really embarrassed by the prodding from Nina as well. So, that's a really fun moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Barbie.
Yeah, thanks, Barbie.
On this episode, specifically for Good Omens, Dr. Bob Phillips says, the story of Job was the heavenly highlight from this episode. The appearance of Crowley's father-in-law as Job, the ribs to kids, and I wouldn't normally say this, but some children do deserve to be turned into geckos, and the theying of God by Mrs. Job. Nice touch, scriptwriters.
Yeah.
Is the Buddy Holly song going to be this season's reworking of Queen in the original book? I think it is, Dr. Bob. Yeah, I think so. I think that's that's a good little touch there as well. Dr. Bob continues, listening to your wonderful podcast again got me to recheck something I thought might be a coffee bar question, forgetting that there's no pub quiz for Good Omens, unfortunately. But I got reminded, what is the strength of the miracle Aziraphale performed? And the strength of the miracle was, what did we say, 12?
12 Lazari.
12 Lazari. There you go. So yeah, that could have been a pub quiz question, or a coffee bar question, or a dirty donkey pub quiz question.
Oh, what a great name for a pub.
Would have been pretty good.
And hoping it actually exists. Probably doesn't.
We've been to Soho a few times and I've never seen the Dirty Donkey pub down there.
We may have been.
We may have been in the Dirty Donkey pub.
We may have been just not aware of it.
That's true. Good stuff.
Excellent stuff.
Thanks, Dr. Bob.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Bob. Cheryl Jones says, we recently did a Bible study on the story of Job, so I found this particularly delightful. Such a good retelling. If you enjoyed this, I would highly recommend A Serious Man by the Coen brothers.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we went to see that on Premiere. In Dublin. I remember watching, really enjoying it.
It was good, wasn't it? Yeah, and really good.
The trials of Job effectively are the trials of the serious man, the character at the center of that movie. That's a really good suggestion, Cheryl.
Yeah, and totally agree, Cheryl. You know, this is such a good reworking done here by the writers and performers, you know, in terms of that dark comedy that's brought to it. It's so good.
Yeah. We've mentioned the X-ray function on all Prime Video shows, this thing where you can press a button and it gives you some little highlights of things that are going on in the scene. I love the one that was on there for this story of Job, which said, if you'd like to know more in a story without so much Aziraphale and Crowley, read the book of Job in the Bible. So they're even having a little bit of fun at it. Good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Cheryl. Barbie Pomelas says, for this episode 2, my favourite part is the story of Job. Those kids are so spoiled and the angels don't know how human pregnancies work. Also, I love that Jim is alphabetizing the books based on the first letter of the first sentence. Any bookworm would tell you that's insanity. Muriel isn't the brightest bulb in the packet either. Yes, I don't think Gabriel ultimately would be a great librarian or bookshop keeper, to be honest.
No, keep him away.
So, yeah, definitely keep him away. And you're right. The story of Job here was done so well. Yeah. Glad you liked it, Barbie, and thanks for the feedback. Keep it coming in.
Absolutely.
Parthenia Dupree Locklear says, I'm a demon. I lied. Just perfect.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It just tied up the whole episode really well. I liked it.
It really did, didn't it? And it was almost bittersweet in a sense, you know?
Yeah. It's like, now you know my loneliness, effectively. I was never going to admit it to you, but now you know my loneliness. Great stuff. Thanks, Parthenia. Finally, Kat Craft says, this season is phenomenal and Derek and John are brilliant. Highly recommend both. And if you don't find Tennant and Sheen irresistible, I'm rethinking our friendship. I totally agree with that. I would rethink the friendship of anybody who didn't find Tennant and Sheen irresistible.
Absolutely.
They're fab together. They're really good.
They're so good. And thank you, Kat. I haven't been called brilliant in a long time.
You are brilliant, John. See, I'll say it to you in person.
Oh, well, thank you. I just don't want to blow my own trumpet.
Well, yes.
No, that's very kind of you, Kat. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Kat. And we did say that every moment and every and all the writing in the show is gold. That there's so many great lines in it. That, of course, we will say that, of course, is because it really is our sense of humor. This show, it just aligns so much with great British comedy, like Blackadder, like as we said, Upstart Crow. You know, those types of comedy which are historical and have great banter in the writing. So I think it does a really good job of that and is hitting our sweet spot of comedy.
Yeah,
if I can speak for both of us, John.
I think you can. Excellent stuff, fellow acolytes. Thanks so much for all your feedback, and keep it coming on into feedback at tvpodcastindustries.com or through our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries.
Absolutely. I'll be posting our feedback post for the third episode after this one posts on the group, so you can pop in your thoughts about episode 3.
Yes, and of course, remember, fellow acolytes, please subscribe to any godly or devilish podcast player of your choice over on TV Podcast Industries. And of course, please remember to share the podcast, because sharing the podcast is, of course, sharing the love.
Absolutely. Yes. We're coming up on 800 podcasts this year, John.
Wow.
Yeah. We should actually hit 800 by the end of this year. So loads and loads of other shows out there to check out that we've been covering as well.
Definitely.
In loads of different ways. Not all as funny as Good Omens.
No. And you can see our progression as podcasters. Exactly. Like, I dread to think what we sound like on our first episode.
Ooh, I've got it, John. I've got it.
I know you have.
I can play it for you.
Please don't.
But yeah, not very many of them at all as funny as the Good Omens show.
No, not absolutely. And of course, remember, we are over on patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, as well as buymeacoffee.com/TVPI, where you can also support us as well.
Absolutely. Any support is appreciated. And of course, sharing the podcast is support. So
exactly. As is feedback. So all good stuff, fellow acolytes.
Absolutely. And once again, a huge thank you to Jason Kabasi and Podcastica.com. Check them out for other great podcasts on their main feed at the moment. Jason, Jenny and Randy have just started their podcast on season 1 of The White Lotus. Oh, I love that show.
Yeah,
it's really good. They're just 2 episodes in, and apparently for research, Jason and Jenny are heading off to Hawaii for a holiday.
Lucky.
And they just said they were just going to try not to be a-holes. even though they're not going there for research, they're going there for a holiday.
Yeah.
But go check out their coverage of White Lotus if you're watching that show, or if you've never seen it before. Hey, do the same as you're doing with Good Omens. Watch that and watch along with them on their podcast. Also, Strange Indeed with Rima Joe and Paik. They've just finished their Black Mirror season 6 coverage, and over on Run for Your Lives, Daphne and Paik are covering movies that would make you run for your life. They've just covered The Babadook this week, and they'll be discussing Insidious Chapter 2 coming up. Yeah. And finally, Ben and Kristen are continuing their Revisited podcast, and after 4 years, they're just a few episodes away from the end of their Lost episode by episode podcast. I think they've got about 4 episodes left of the podcast. They just hit 100 episodes, so I think it's 104 episodes for Lost.
Excellent stuff. So loads and loads of stuff on podcastica.com as well.
Exactly. Go check it out.
Yeah, so thanks so much for joining us, fellow acolytes. We will, of course, be back next time with Good Omens Season 2, Chapter 3, I Know Where I'm Going. It's also featuring the minisode, The Resurrectionists. Dun, dun, dun.
Well, now that we found out what a minisode is, it's just a flashback. I guess Aziraphale and Crowley may have had some dealings with resurrectionists before.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again next time.
Yeah, remember, fellow acolytes, keep watching, keep listening, and the apocalypse is coming, so grab your hard hat.
Dr. Bob Phillips.
Yes. Don't forget your stethoscope as well. And your white coat.
Maybe a mask.
And your PPE.
Bye.
Bye. Meanwhile, Michael, Uriel, and Saquelhol arrive.
Seroquel.
I got slightly confused by there being no U after the Q.
Oh, yeah.
Meanwhile, Michael,